These are the 10 signs you are dangerously smart, and the first one never feels like a gift. It begins quietly, almost innocently, in the smallest corners of your awareness. You start noticing the things other people miss. The hesitation in a voice, the shift in someone's eyes when they lie, the way a room changes when truth walks in, or when deceit slithers through the door. At first, you think you're overthinking. You tell yourself you're imagining patterns where there are none. But the longer you watch, the more undeniable it becomes. Nothing is random, nothing is accidental. Every gesture reveals intent, every silence hides a motive, every story people tell you is shaped by what they want from you. And what's most unsettling is this: if the first signs feel like burden, the last ones feel like ascension. The higher your mind evolves, the more the world reveals itself, and the harder it becomes to return to who you once were. This is the first sign, the moment perception becomes burden. You don't simply see the world, you read it like a strategist reading a battlefield. And once that begins, you can never unsee it. The second sign emerges slowly, almost against your will. Your emotions don't vanish, they simply stop controlling you. You begin to analyze your own feelings the way a surgeon studies a wound, carefully, precisely, without panic. Sadness becomes information, anger becomes a signal, fear becomes a calculation. Where others drown in their emotional storms, you stand on the shore, watching the waves instead of being swallowed by them. You begin asking yourself not, "What do I feel?" but "Why do I feel it? And what does this reaction reveal about the situation?" This shift is subtle but dangerous. People mistake your calm for coldness, your composure for apathy, your silence for indifference. They don't understand that you've simply learned to step outside your own mind long enough to see your emotions for what they truly are: data. And once emotion becomes data, it loses the power to rule you. Then comes the third sign, the one that hurts the most. Loneliness. Not the loneliness caused by isolation, but the loneliness caused by perception. You start to realize how few people actually think, how few people question, how few people notice. Conversations feel thinner, lighter, easier to break. The more you understand, the less you can say. You try explaining the connections you see, the motives you sense, the patterns you observe, but the words fall flat. You become too deep for shallow minds, too aware for comfortable people, too reflective for those who survive by distraction. And so you begin to withdraw, not out of superiority, but out of necessity. You can no longer trust the comfort of the crowd, because you've seen how quickly comfort becomes blindness. You can no longer rely on the warmth of belonging, because you've realized that belonging often requires a kind of self-betrayal. The truth is simple but heavy. Intelligence isolates because it notices what comfort ignores. This is the curse of clarity. The moment your mind begins separating itself from the world that once felt familiar, you walk into rooms and sense tension before anyone speaks. You hear truths hiding beneath casual conversations. You understand why someone is acting distant long before they find the courage to admit it. And the price of this clarity is that you rarely feel surprised. Shock becomes rare, innocence becomes memory. You stop expecting honesty from those who benefit from illusions. You stop assuming loyalty from those who thrive on convenience. You stop believing that everyone has the same hunger for truth that you do. And in this quiet loss of innocence, something dangerous begins to form inside you. Because while others navigate life through emotion and impulse, you begin to navigate it through understanding. You become harder to manipulate. Not because you're guarded, but because you can recognize the shape of manipulation before it even touches you. You become harder to provoke, not because you're numb, but because you've learned that reacting is an act of surrender. You become harder to deceive, not because you're suspicious, but because deception has patterns you've already learned to see. And this is where the melancholy of intelligence transforms into its first spark of power. You realize that you don't need to expose people to protect yourself from them. You don't need to confront someone to understand their intentions. You don't even need to speak to know what the room is thinking. Awareness becomes armor. Distance becomes clarity. Silence becomes strategy. Yet beneath this new internal strength lies an ache. The ache of watching people repeat the same mistakes you can predict from a mile away. You see the heartbreak coming before they do. You see the betrayal forming in the cracks of their relationships. You see the downfall hiding in their habits. But you also know they won't listen. They can't. They don't see what you see. They can't feel what you feel. And so you carry the burden alone, quietly, without celebration, without applause. That is why the most intelligent people often become the quietest, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have learned that most ears are not built to hold the weight of truth. You watch the world with a calm that others misinterpret. You walk through life with a certainty that others resent. You understand people with a precision that others fear. And slowly, you begin to feel something shift inside you, a quiet, unsettling realization. You stopped being surprised by people. That's when you started becoming dangerous. By the fourth sign, your intelligence stops feeling like awareness. It starts feeling like strategy. Something sharpens inside you, something cold and strangely reassuring. You no longer wait for events to collide into you. You sense them before they arrive. You watch people the way a general studies marching formations, noting their habits, their inconsistencies, their fragilities. You begin predicting outcomes without trying to, almost like your mind rearranges the future into patterns it has already seen 100 times. And this is where the danger begins. You stop reacting to life because you already understand where each path leads. You stop trusting luck because strategy has replaced chance. You stop negotiating with chaos because your foresight has learned to carve order out of it. This is predictive thinking, the fourth sign. The moment you stop being a participant and start becoming an observer standing above the board. The fifth sign emerges the moment you realize that panic is a performance reserved for the unprepared. While others crumble under pressure, loud voices, frantic decisions, emotional outbursts, you remain still. Not because you're unaffected, but because your mind refuses to be dragged into chaos, when chaos only reveals the truth. You watch people lose clarity the moment they feel fear. You watch them sabotage themselves by acting too fast, too loudly, too desperately, and quietly you do the opposite. You slow down, you breathe, you analyze, you let emotion pass through you like wind through an empty hall, never clinging, never shaking the walls of your judgment. This indifference to emotional noise doesn't make you cold, it makes you effective. You've learned that the mind that stays calm holds the advantage over the mind that screams for control. Your silence becomes unsettling, not because it hides weakness, but because it suggests a level of preparation others cannot see. Then comes the sixth sign, the sharpening of strategic patience. You no longer rush toward outcomes. You no longer chase opportunities as if they might vanish if you take a moment to think. You've learned that timing is more powerful than intention. Most people seek power through force, but you understand that waiting can dismantle an opponent more effectively than aggression ever could. You watch as people expose themselves through impulse. You let rivals sabotage their own alliances by revealing their insecurities. You let enemies destroy their own credibility by speaking too much. You wait, not passively, but with focus, like a predator that understands the value of conserving energy. This is the moment intelligence transforms into discipline. You choose your battles as carefully as you choose your silences. And within this new patience, a darker truth begins to shape itself, one Machiavelli understood profoundly. The intelligent rarely need to strike first. They win by outlasting, by watching, by allowing lesser minds to burn themselves out, trying to prove something that never needed to be proven. You begin recognizing that most conflicts don't require your intervention. Most insults don't require your response. Most provocations don't require your dignity. You learn that silence can humiliate a liar more thoroughly than argument ever could. You learn that a paused reaction can reveal someone's real intentions far more quickly than a heated reply. You learn that time is a more loyal ally than pride. This is the stage where people start misunderstanding you. They think you're detached. They think you're distant. They think nothing affects you. What they don't understand is that you've simply stepped out of the emotional arena where most people destroy themselves. You're not avoiding chaos. You're letting chaos reveal what you already suspected. You watch connections shift. You watch alliances crumble. You watch people betray themselves long before they attempt to betray you. And while they're busy reacting, you're busy learning. People will accuse you of being calculating, and they will be right, but they will say it with resentment, not understanding. Because the truth they cannot process is this: you don't calculate to manipulate, you calculate to survive, to protect your peace, to protect your future, to protect the structure of your thoughts, which has become your strongest weapon. And so you step back from unnecessary drama. You step back from superficial arguments. You step back from emotions that demand performance instead of clarity. Others see this withdrawal as indifference, but you know it is evolution. This is the phase when intelligence becomes intimidating, when your calm is misread as superiority, when your silence is interpreted as judgment, when your patience feels like a threat. People start thinking you're hiding something, when in truth, you've simply stopped handing them access to the inside of your mind. You no longer give explanations freely. You no longer justify your distance. You no longer rush to assure people that everything is fine, because you understand now that the people who truly deserve your energy will never demand urgency from your soul. And with that realization, something shifts in your interactions. You become harder to read, not because you are pretending, but because you have become precise. You choose when to speak. You choose when to reveal your thoughts. You choose when to act. You choose when to withdraw. Your intelligence stops being visible. It starts becoming felt. This is why Machiavelli was feared by those who did not understand him, and respected by those who did. He knew that the most intelligent man wins not by force, but by waiting, by understanding the nature of people, by letting outcomes reveal themselves without forcing them into existence. And you begin to embody this law without even noticing. You become the calm one in rooms full of noise. You become the steady one in moments of uncertainty. You become the observer who learns more in silence than others do in endless conversation. And slowly, inevitably, you begin to realize a truth that will follow you through every future chapter of your life. This is when people stop understanding you and start fearing you. The seventh sign is the one that terrifies people, the moment you stop needing to prove how smart you are. Something shifts in you, quietly but irreversibly. You no longer waste your breath explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer correct people who argue from emotion instead of logic. You no longer go to war just to show that you were right. You've learned that truth doesn't need your defense, it only needs time. And so you fall silent, not out of fear, not out of defeat, but out of a deeper, colder understanding. Most people expose themselves if you simply stop speaking. This is quiet authority, the seventh sign. It shows itself in the way you sit, the way you listen, the way you allow others to reveal their inconsistencies while you say nothing. You study contradictions, half-truths, and emotional outbursts with the same calm precision a scholar examines ancient texts. You understand that when people talk too much, they eventually betray their own intelligence. So you let them talk, you let them circle themselves, you let them dig their holes, and the entire room shifts its attention to you without knowing why. They feel something in your silence, control, the authority that comes not from volume, but from presence, the power that comes not from argument, but from the refusal to argue. It is the moment when your intelligence becomes atmospheric, felt, not advertised. And then the eighth sign arrives, the one that threatens the weak more than anything else: tactical withdrawal. You walk away from pointless battles. You refuse to fight in arenas where the prize is your peace. You don't correct the insecure. You don't chase the disloyal. You don't justify your intuition to those who have never learned to trust their own. People mistake this for weakness, but you know better. You've learned that most conflict is engineered by people who are terrified of confronting their own flaws. They want you loud, emotional, reactive, because that validates their chaos, but you won't give it to them. Instead, you retreat, not out of cowardice, but out of strategy. You conserve energy for the war that matters, not the skirmishes that flatter someone else's ego. You let people underestimate you. You let them assume you are passive. You let them believe they've won something by pulling you into silence. What they don't realize is that your silence is a verdict, a final assessment of their value in your life. Every withdrawal is a decision. This person is not worth the fire I carry. This withdrawal becomes your shield and your sword. It protects you from emotional leeches. It saves you from draining conversations. It frees you from the illusion that every misunderstanding deserves reconciliation. You start valuing your time the way kings value their throne, fiercely, selectively, unapologetically, and in doing so, you create something rare, boundaries that require no announcement. Your absence becomes louder than your presence. Your distance becomes proof of your standards. Your refusal to engage becomes your warning shot. This is when your intelligence shifts from private insight to public influence, though you never intended it. People start behaving differently around you. They choose their words more carefully. They hesitate before lying. They second-guess their assumptions about you. Your unpredictability forces them into honesty. Your silence forces them into self-reflection. Your detachment reveals their insecurities. Without speaking a single threat, you become a psychological force. You dominate through restraint, not aggression. And this transformation creates a tension you can feel in every interaction. People don't know how to read you anymore. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you've noticed. They don't know what conclusions you've already formed. They sense that you see through them, and that terrifies them. It makes them defensive, deferential, or overly eager to please. They begin projecting stories onto you, that you're calculating, mysterious, dangerous, uncaring, too intelligent for your own good. In their confusion, they invent myths to explain your composure. But the truth is simpler and far more powerful. You've outgrown the need to perform intelligence. You no longer show your cards to prove you have them. You reveal just enough for others to expose their hands. You ask questions that make people reveal more than they intended. You speak in a way that forces others to think before responding. You carry yourself with the calm of someone who no longer fears the truth in themselves or in others. This is the heart of Machiavellian mastery. A wise man never shows all his cards, only enough to make others reveal theirs. You embody this principle without effort now. You don't intimidate people by force, you intimidate them by reflection. Your presence becomes a mirror that exposes their flaws, their fears, their motives. Some admire you for it, others resent you, but all of them feel you. This invisible dominance grows quietly but unmistakably. You become the person people watch closely, even in silence. The one whose approval they seek even if they pretend not to. The one they discuss when you're not in the room. But you remain still, distant, observing from a vantage point they cannot reach. Not because you want power, but because you've discovered a truth that most never learn. Intelligence is not about knowing more than others. It is about knowing yourself so well that no one can use your mind against you. And when people realize they cannot predict you, cannot provoke you, cannot manipulate you, cannot decipher you, they begin creating their own narratives about who you are. That is the price and the privilege of this level of intelligence. You stop being a person in people's minds. You become a story, a rumor, a question mark. That's how intelligence becomes power. The last two signs are not skills, they're transformations. You no longer think like others, and you no longer need to. Something in you rises above the noise of ordinary perception. It's not superiority, it's not arrogance, it's distance, the kind that forms when your mind has traveled farther than the world around you. This is the ninth sign, visionary detachment. You stop seeing life as a collection of isolated events and start seeing it as a system of interlocking forces. Psychology, incentive, fear, desire, ambition, weakness, timing. You see how people move, not because of what they say, but because of what they value. You notice how societies operate, how power shifts, how narratives shape behavior. Patterns reveal themselves to you, not as coincidences, but as inevitabilities. You begin predicting not just individuals, but entire dynamics. The world stops being a mystery, it becomes a machine, and you understand the gears. This detachment can feel almost supernatural. You sense when a relationship is ending long before the conversation happens. You know when a person is trying to manipulate you before their sentence is even finished. You can tell when someone's praise is genuine and when it is strategy. You notice the exact moment someone begins to envy you. You can feel the undercurrents in a room, the emotional hierarchies forming and collapsing, the subtle shifts in alliances. You see the psychological architecture behind every action. And so you rise above the drama that consumes others, not because you're bored, but because you've already mapped the outcome. But visionary detachment carries a cost. Once you see systems, you stop taking things personally. And when you stop taking things personally, many people will accuse you of not caring. They cannot comprehend a mind that is not driven by ego, by validation, by the need to be right, by the need to be seen. They want to believe you are like them, ruled by reaction. But the ninth sign means that you've stepped outside the cycle that traps others. You no longer fight battles that have no impact on your destiny. You no longer cling to people whose futures are shrinking. You no longer participate in conversations that degrade your awareness. You've noticed the difference between those who grow and those who cling, and so you walk your own path, no matter how misunderstood it makes you. Then comes the 10th sign, the final transformation. Emotional sovereignty. The moment nothing external has power over your inner state, not praise, Not rejection, not conflict, not chaos. You have tamed the part of your mind that once demanded reaction, validation, vengeance, explanation, performance. You no longer seek control over others because you've learned the only real control worth having is control over yourself. You feel anger without being ruled by it. You feel fear without letting it dictate your choices. You feel desire without letting it distort your judgment. And when someone tries to provoke you, they find nothing to grab. Your mind is no longer a battlefield, it is fortified ground. This sovereignty makes you untouchable in ways that frighten people. They cannot figure out what motivates you. They cannot figure out what threatens you. They cannot figure out what you want, because what you want is no longer dependent on them. You operate on long timelines, not impulses. You make decisions from clarity, not emotion. You can walk away from anything that disrupts your peace, not because you're detached from life, but because you finally value your inner world more than the illusions of external chaos. This is the stage where intelligence becomes something more than a trait. It becomes an identity. You experience life from the vantage point Machiavelli admired most, the invisible ruler, the one who leads not through authority, but through foresight, the one who sees the traps before stepping into them, the one who lets others reveal themselves fully before making a single move, the one who understands that the most powerful position is not the throne, but the vantage point from which the throne can be claimed or abandoned at will. People will begin reacting to you without realizing why. They become more honest around you because your silence exposes their contradictions. They become more cautious because your calm reveals their insecurities. They become more respectful because your boundaries tell them exactly where their influence ends. You don't enforce your presence, you define it. You don't demand loyalty, you inspire it. You don't chase respect, your self-possession earns it. This is the ascent that very few people reach, not because it is impossible, but because it requires shedding everything society uses to control a mind: the need to be liked, the fear of being alone, the hunger for validation, the obsession with being understood. You outgrow these things, and in doing so, you step into a mental autonomy that feels like liberation. When you operate from this level of intelligence, you no longer argue with life. You redirect it. You no longer fear uncertainty. You negotiate with it. You no longer crumble under loss. You learn from it. You no longer react to others. You let them reveal their nature, their character, their limits. And you respond only when it serves your purpose, never when it serves their chaos. This is why the dangerously intelligent are often misinterpreted as cold, not because they lack emotion, but because their emotional world is private, disciplined, sovereign. They feel deeply, but choose carefully. They think broadly, but act precisely. They see clearly, but speak selectively. You've become what Machiavelli called the invisible ruler, the one who commands by anticipation, not command, the one whose power does not shout, it radiates, the one whose intelligence is not used to dominate others, but to remain unruled